When you're first starting out in photography, it feels like there's an endless list of things you should be doing. Build a website, master editing, post on social media every day, buy new gear, watch every tutorial, and before you know it, you've spent hours, weeks, even months spinning your wheels without actually booking clients or improving your craft in ways that matter. I've been there. I've wasted time on all the wrong things, and I've watched so many beginners do the same. That's why in today's episode, I want to talk about the most common time wasters new photographers fall into, and more importantly, what to focus on instead. Because if you can skip these traps early, you'll save yourself frustration, burnout, and a lot of money. And you'll move faster toward actually building a business that works. One of the easiest traps to fall into as a new photographer is the belief that the right piece of gear will finally make you good enough. You scroll through forums, you watch YouTube reviews, you peek into other photographers' bags, and you convince yourself that your images would look like theirs if only you had that same lens, or that newer camera body, or that expensive lighting setup. It feels productive. Researching gear, building wish lists, daydreaming about your someday setup. But the truth is, it's a massive time sink that doesn't get you any closer to booking or serving real clients. I remember my own early obsession with gear. I was convinced that if I just upgraded from my entry-level body to the pro line, suddenly my photos would look polished. So I spent weeks reading reviews, comparing specs, and talking myself into saving for the big jump. When I finally bought it, guess what? My photos looked almost exactly the same. The images weren't sharper. The light wasn't magically better. The only thing that changed was the number in my bank account. It wasn't the camera holding me back. It was me. And this isn't just my story. I've mentored countless beginners who thought their images would transform if they upgraded to the latest release. But when they show me their work, the issue isn't the gear, it's composition, it's lighting, it's connection with the subject. Those are skills no lens will give you. And that's why so many photographers get stuck in the gear trap. They use shopping for equipment as a way to avoid the uncomfortable truth that the only thing that makes you better is practice. The gear trap steals more than your money. It steals your time. Hours spent watching best lens for portraits videos could be hours spent actually photographing people. Days spent scrolling through secondhand marketplaces could be days spent practicing how to work with tricky light. And every week you delay booking clients because you're waiting for that perfect lens is a week you could have been building confidence with what you already own. Now, don't get me wrong, gear matters eventually. Having the right tools for the type of work you do is important. But there's a difference between gear being necessary and gear being an excuse. Beginners often confuse the two. They think, I can't book clients until I have a 7200 millimeters, or I can't shoot weddings until I upgrade my full frame. But here's the reality. Clients don't care what you're shooting with. They care how they look in the photos and how you made them feel. Think about it. Has a client ever asked you about your aperture blades or sensor size? No. What they ask is, do I look good? Can you capture my family the way I see them? Will I feel comfortable in front of your camera? That's what matters. And you can deliver all of that with the gear you already own if you put in the practice. So how do you escape the gear trap? First, accept your current equipment as your classroom. Instead of dreaming about what you'll do someday with a better lens, challenge yourself with what you have today. If your kit lens doesn't open wider than f4, practice creating blurry backgrounds by pulling your subject away from the wall and moving closer. If your camera struggles in low light, practice positioning subjects near windows or learning how to bounce light. The limitations of your gear force you to be creative, and that creativity is what sharpens your skills faster than a new toy ever will. Second, schedule intentional practice. Pick one setting on your camera and master it. Spend an afternoon only shooting at a fixed aperture. Try photographing the same subject in 10 different types of light. Practice until changing your settings feels like muscle memory. This kind of repetition may not feel glamorous, but it builds the foundation that will make you unstoppable later. Third, shift your mindset about gear envy. Instead of asking, what gear do they have that I don't? Ask, what do they know that I can learn? When you see a beautiful image, Study the light, the posing, the emotion, not just the lens listed in the caption. That's where the real magic comes from. And when you start studying that way, you'll see improvement in your own work without spending a dime. Here's a simple story that illustrates this. I once worked with a student who had a basic crop sensor camera and a kit lens. She kept telling me, "I'll book clients once I can afford a prime lens." I challenged her to book 2 sessions with the gear she already had, promising her that if she focused on posing and light, she'd be surprised. Reluctantly, she agreed, and those sessions turned out beautifully. Her clients were thrilled. They didn't ask what lens she used. They didn't care. They cared that she captured their joy, that she made them laugh, that they had images they loved. That experience completely shifted her thinking. She realized she didn't have to wait for permission from a piece of equipment. The real cost of the gear trap is delay. Every week you spend waiting for the perfect setup is a week you're not learning how to handle real client situations. The toddler who won't sit still, the dad who hates being in photos, the wedding timeline that runs behind. Those are the skills that make you a professional, and no gear purchase will prepare you for them. Only experience will. So here's the bottom line. Don't waste your early months and years obsessing over equipment. Don't fall for the myth that the next lens will unlock your potential. Your potential is already in your hands, literally, with the camera you own. Use it, push it, learn from it. When you outgrow it, you'll know. And that's when upgrading will feel like a tool, not a crutch. If you're just starting out, the best thing you can do for your photography isn't adding to your cart. It's adding hours behind the lens, book sessions, practice constantly, make mistakes and learn from them. That's what builds photographers who last. After the gear trap, the next big time sink I see beginners fall into is the endless rabbit hole of editing and branding. And I want to say this carefully because editing and branding do matter. But in the beginning, spending hours on them won't book you clients. Let's start with editing. Every new photographer thinks their magic will come from presets or the perfect editing workflow or mastering every single slider in Lightroom. So they spend hours watching tutorials, buying packs, tweaking endlessly, comparing their work to others. They chase a style before they've even learned to shoot consistently. The problem with this is simple. Editing can't fix what you didn't capture in the first place. If the light isn't good, if the moment isn't there, no preset is going to create magic. I've watched beginners spend 8 hours editing one gallery only to end up with inconsistent images and frustration. They think, once I figure out editing, I'll feel confident enough to book. But the truth is, your editing will evolve over time. It will shift as your taste sharpens and your skills grow. You don't need to lock it in perfectly at the start. You just need clean, consistent, natural edits that show clients you can deliver what you promised. Spending endless nights tweaking hues by 2 degrees is time you could spend actually photographing people. Here's what works better. Pick one simple editing approach and stick with it for now. Maybe it's a clean and bright look. Maybe it's natural and true to life. Don't buy 20 preset packs. Don't chase trends. Learn how to nail exposure and white balance in camera, and then use editing to polish, not to reinvent. That way you'll actually deliver galleries on time and you'll build confidence in your ability to finish work efficiently. Clients don't care if your greens lean slightly warm or cool. They care that they have images they can treasure. Now let's talk about branding. Oh, the branding rabbit hole. I cannot tell you how many new photographers I've seen get stuck here. They spend weeks agonizing over their logo, their fonts, their color palette, their tagline. They redesign their website 3 times before they've booked a single client. They convince themselves they can't launch until the branding is perfect. And what happens? They waste months polishing visuals instead of practicing their craft or marketing their services. The truth is, branding matters far less in your first year than you think. What clients want at this stage isn't a perfect logo. It's reliability. They want to know you'll show up, do the work, deliver the images, and treat them with respect. Your brand at the beginning is you. Your personality, your communication, your reliability. That's what people remember, not the exact shade of orange on your website. And let's be honest, your branding will change. Every photographer I know has gone through at least one rebrand, usually several, because your style shifts, your audience clarifies, and your business grows. So if you spend 3 months perfecting a logo now, chances are you'll want to scrap it in 2 years. That time could be better spent learning how to talk to clients, how to pose people, how to shoot in tricky light. Those skills compound in value. A font does not. Here's what I recommend instead. Create a simple, clean online presence. Pick a neutral font, a minimal layout, and one or two colors you like. Don't overthink it. Get your portfolio up, your contact info visible, and your offer clear. That's it. You can evolve the visuals later. For now, the brand is your experience, not your design. I'll give you an example. I once mentored a student who delayed launching for nearly a year because she was stuck on her logo. She kept tweaking it, changing her brand name, redoing her colors. Meanwhile, her peers who just picked something simple were booking clients left and right. Finally, she decided to launch with what she had. Within a month, she had paying clients. Not one of them asked about her logo. Not one cared what font she used. They cared about the photos and how she treated them. That was her real brand all along. The other danger of the editing and branding rabbit holes is that they become a form of procrastination. You tell yourself you're working on your business when really you're hiding from the scary part, putting yourself out there and asking people to book. Editing and branding feel safe because they're in your control, but business growth comes from the things outside your comfort zone, like marketing, networking, and client communication. So if you find yourself tweaking your website layout for the 10th time or buying another preset pack you don't need, stop and ask, is this moving me closer to booking a client? If the answer is no, set it aside. You don't have to ignore editing or branding altogether, but they should be secondary to the work of actually getting behind the camera and building relationships. Here's the mindset shift. Your editing style and your visual brand are living things. They will grow with you. They don't have to be perfect to start. What needs to be solid right now is your willingness to show up, to practice, and to serve. Perfection in your branding won't book your first clients, but confidence and consistency will. So don't waste months polishing something you'll outgrow anyway. Keep it simple, keep it consistent, and keep moving forward. That's how you build momentum in the beginning. The last big time waster I see beginners fall into is what I call the social media spiral. You sit down with the good intention of posting your work, maybe sharing about your new offer, maybe even checking in on what's trending. But suddenly an hour has gone by and you haven't posted a thing. Instead, you've scrolled through other photographers' feeds, compared yourself to their work, and convinced yourself you're behind. You didn't grow your business. You drained your energy. Now let's be real. Social media is part of being a photographer today. It's a powerful tool for visibility and connection. But if you're not intentional, it quickly becomes a black hole of comparison and distraction. You see polished feeds with thousands of followers and think, I need that before I can succeed. You chase trends that don't align with your clients. You spend more time consuming than creating, and in the end you feel stuck, like you're working hard, but nothing's moving. Here's the truth. You don't need to master social media to book your first clients. You don't need a perfect grid. You don't need reels going viral. You just need a clear way to show your work and a simple way for people to reach you. That's it. When you're starting, social media should be a portfolio, not a full-time job, a place to put your best images, and a call to action that says, here's how to book me. Everything else is extra. The danger of the social media spiral is that it tricks you into thinking you're working on your business. You spend hours scrolling, but those hours don't move you forward. They don't build your skills. They don't bring in clients. They just make you feel exhausted and behind. And honestly, they often make you doubt yourself. I can't tell you how many beginners have told me I feel like I'll never measure up after spending an evening looking at other photographers' feeds. So how do you use social media without wasting time in the spiral? Set boundaries. Decide how much time you'll spend posting and stick to it. Batch content if you can. Set aside an hour once a week to schedule your posts so you're not on the app every day. And most importantly, shift your focus from vanity metrics to real connection. 10 engaged followers who actually book you are more valuable than 1,000 likes from strangers who never will. Now let's talk about learning distractions, because this is another huge time sink for beginners. YouTube tutorials, online courses, blogs, podcasts. The information available to photographers today is endless, and while that's a gift, it's also a trap. You can spend so much time learning that you never actually do. You convince yourself that you need just one more course before you're ready to charge. You fill notebooks with tips and tricks but never practice them, and suddenly months or years have passed and you're still waiting to start. I've seen this happen over and over. Beginners tell me they've taken 5 editing courses, 3 posing workshops, and watched hundreds of hours of tutorials. But when I ask them how many paying clients they've had, the answer is often 0. Not because they aren't capable, but because they've convinced themselves they're not ready yet. They're hiding behind education instead of using it. Don't get me wrong, education is important. I wouldn't be here teaching if I didn't believe that. But the best education in photography happens behind the camera, not behind a screen. Watching someone else shoot doesn't give you muscle memory. Reading about client communication doesn't prepare you for a toddler meltdown during a family session. You only learn by doing. So here's how to avoid the learning trap. Limit the amount of time you spend consuming content and balance it with action. For every hour you spend learning, spend at least 2 hours practicing. If you watch a video about lighting, grab your camera and test it the same day. If you take a posing course, practice with a friend that week. Don't let information pile up without application, because unpracticed knowledge isn't knowledge, it's clutter. And let's be honest about why we fall into this trap. It feels safer to learn than to act. Watching tutorials doesn't risk failure. Taking another course doesn't risk rejection. But stepping out, booking sessions, asking for payment, that's scary. That's vulnerable. So we hide in endless preparation. But hiding won't build your business. Action will. I'll give you a story here. I worked with a student who had taken course after course. She had binders full of notes, links to dozens of tutorials, and more photography books than most libraries. But she hadn't booked a single client. She kept telling herself she wasn't ready. Finally, I challenged her. Pick one area, take what you've learned, and put it into practice this week. She reluctantly booked a friend of a friend for a paid mini session. And guess what? It went great. Was it perfect? No. But the client was thrilled, and she realized she had been ready all along. She just needed to act. That's the lesson here. Social media and endless education both give the illusion of progress. They make you feel busy. But if they're not paired with action, they're just distractions. So instead of chasing likes or piling up tutorials, focus on doing the work, book the session, show up, practice, learn through experience. That's how you grow. And remember, wasting time isn't just about losing hours. It's about losing momentum. Every day you delay is a day you could have been building confidence, building relationships, building your portfolio. So cut out the distractions, set boundaries, and keep your focus on the work that actually moves you forward. Because here's the bottom line. Your clients don't care about your follower count or how many tutorials you've watched. They care that you can capture their story with heart and skill. And the only way to build that skill is to step out of the spiral and into real practice. So if you've been stuck in endless scrolling or endless learning, consider this your nudge. Close the app, stop the video, pick up your camera, and go shoot. That's where the real growth happens. And if you need a community that will help you stay accountable to doing instead of just consuming, come join us inside the Savvy Shutterbug community. It's where photographers share what's working, celebrate their action steps, and encourage each other to move forward. You don't have to fight distraction alone. We're building momentum together.